Yeah.
Autoline After Hours is brought to you by Alex Partners, when it really matters, and by Borg Warner. The automotive industry continues to evolve, and so do the opportunities to define it. Borg Warner, one of the world's most admired companies, gets partners where they need to go. Let's do something big together.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us on Autoline After Hours. Gary, what's today's show going to be about?
Today's show is going to be about like everything. We're gonna look at the entire auto industry from soup to nuts, and
we got two experts here to get us through all
that's why we're talking about all of this.
Yeah,
I try.
Stephanie Brinley from S&P Global Mobility, correct?
Yes, thank you.
Paul Waatti from AutoPacific.
Great to be back, guys.
we got like the two consultants in the industry here, analysts, consultants, what have you. We should start with a quiz, though. We haven't had a quiz for a very long time.
Okay.
I've had some great ones, and I've just sat there, and they've gone nowhere. So
fire away.
So on October 23rd, 1911, a vehicle went into production overseas that has had significant impact ever since.
1911, overseas.
That's nice.
So that pretty much says Europe. I mean, I don't think the Japanese or the Koreans or anybody else was doing things then.
No, I don't think they were. Not the Koreans for sure, and I don't think the Japanese were quite.
We're getting close.
Okay.
Mercedes-Benz?
No.
Mercedes.
I mean, it could have been a Mercedes-Benz Carbonite, their first one.
Right.
You said we were getting close when we said not Japanese. So.
You stumped us, Gary.
Yeah.
The Model T.
No, it went into production before that.
No, here.
Overseas. Where was that? Ireland?
England.
England.
That's why I didn't want to say Europe.
Yeah. Not to insult our British fans.
Yeah, you got
That's right.
Right.
So I had to be very delicate about that, so I didn't want to say that. But it's interesting. I mean, that, you know, if you talk to people who are in England, I mean, Ford has been there so long, it almost seems like an indigenous company to them.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put that in the past tense.
Well,
because
yes,
Ford has not got much of anything going on in Britain now.
Right. But if they think, you know, if they think about the brand, right?
Yeah.
Versus the brand, like if there were a Chevy there, right? They would say, oh, you know, that Corvette, it's an American vehicle, right? But if they see a transit van,
it's just
what, you know, it's part of the scenery, right?
It's part of the European scenery.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
So I mean, we got so many topics to get into here. One thing that I thought was very interesting was GM's earnings that came out just a couple of days ago, or yesterday, I guess it was. And boy, their profits, operating and net profits, down sharply. Sales were not much of a gain, revenue not much of a gain, and yet the stock price took off.
Because everybody thought it was going to be worse than it was.
I know, but you don't go, whoa, okay, those numbers aren't so bad. I better get invest. There's more positive stuff going on. Why the market went after it.
It was interesting that it did go positive like that, but it was better than it was expected. And really, who's gonna be able to say I've got more profits this quarter?
Not many.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the profits didn't look too good, did they?
So the revenue was there. I mean, there was revenue there, and still moving forward, I think, and managing the tariffs as well as I can.
And it's also what they cut, you know, BrightDrop, you know, that's cutting some loss there. You know, I recently talked to a business owner, and he had mentioned that one of the keys to his success in his business was excise. You know, he was willing to look at any new business opportunity, but he was also ruthless about cutting his losses early and often. And, you know, throwing good money at bad doesn't do much for your business. So cutting BrightDrop, I think, was a smart move.
So let's talk about this a little bit. I mean, so BrightDrop, when it came out, this was going to be, you know, the bright shiny box, literally bright shiny box that was an EV that was going to have all manner of clever things, including specific carts that were made to
Yep.
fit into it, and you'd be able to roll them off, and they would drive.
Moreover, they were going to have
They were gonna have-
semi-autonomous. They would
Right.
follow a delivery person to the door.
And I mean, and then they, they had it in 2 sizes. When they launched, they had somebody from FedEx saying, "Oh, we can't wait to get our hands on these." And I think Walmart was another that, "Oh, we're going to have all of these vehicles." And so, as you point out, they're saying we're done. I mean, first it was a standalone, right? And then they rolled it into Chevy.
Yep.
And now they're rolling it out the door and it's gone. And, I don't know about your neighborhood, but in mine, I mean, I'm seeing the Amazon Rivian EVs all the time. I mean, the idea is right, isn't it?
The idea is right, but it still hasn't been taking off quite, even with Rivian and Amazon. I think we do see a lot of them here, but I think it's a little bit location oriented. Here's another one. You notice they're building a commercial van with Hyundai in a couple of years.
That's true.
So if right now it's not really working the way that you want it to, the sales really aren't there, the plant's been down for a couple months anyway, it's struggled the entire time that it's been on between battery issues and all sorts of things, why not? Let it go. Don't throw more good money after bad right now. And in 2 or 3 years, hopefully commercial vans are, and then the electric side of it is picking up a little bit more, and you will have an answer.
How come it didn't work though? I mean, you look, Rivian's lucky. Amazon's buying these vans. They said what the original order was for like 100,000.
It was 100,000 through 2030.
Yeah. So, and Ford is doing like 4 times better with the Transit Connect compared to the BrightDrop. And again, the numbers aren't fantastic, but it's 4 times better.
Right.
How come General Motors was not able to sell the BrightDrop van?
Because they didn't stick it with Chevy in the first place. I think actually having it as a separate brand and independent, when you look at that fleet business and you're trying to get people that have multiple fleet vehicles in there, they really are all into like, let's go with Chevrolet. I mean, and Rivian has Amazon, so you're not selling to a bunch of different fleets. And Rivian has opened it up to other fleets. So maybe Amazon's being a little bit slower than what they expected. That's entirely possible because it was 100,000 by 2030.
But I think they have 60,000 out there right now.
They may.
So, I mean, that's not bad. They got
It's not bad.
They got 5 years to
They've got
fill
5
out
years
more,
to keep
to
doing
fill
it.
the 40. Right?
But I think that BrightDrop internet, like it was clever. It was a really cool idea when it started off, but I think it was too far from the fleet business. And I think they might have had a better shot if it had been a Chevrolet product from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And then it went from BrightDrop to being part of the Involve fleet business and then to Chevrolet. So there was a little bit of inconsistency in what to do with it.
I think long term, there's definitely a lot of opportunity in electric commercial. I think right now, commercial buyers tend to be a little more conservative, and BrightDrop wasn't necessarily a cheap van for one. Infrastructure is still pretty low on the totem pole in our country, and so I think the timing was off. In addition to, I think it should have been branded as Chevy.
But wasn't it BrightDrop because General Motors wanted to tell the market they were cool, and they hired a tech guy, I forget his name, Josh something.
Yeah.
Is it Josh Talpo?
No.
I mean, they hired some guy who was like from out of the industry. He came in, he was going to run this thing, and it'd be like, yeah, you want to come with us because Ford, that's old. We're the new kids on the block, and you want to be with us.
There was a lot of things that were going to make Wall Street happy that year-long period from everyone.
But there are, let's
Some
go
of
back
it
to
worked and some of
GM
it
because I think there are some really positive things, and I think that's what the market jumped at. One of those being that they let it slip out of their mouths that so far this year OnStar has generated $2 billion in revenue.
Yeah, record.
I don't think they've talked about that before, and they said they have 11 million subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge number. And they talked about the growth, the explosive growth just in the last quarter of Super Cruise and how many people are signing up for that. And that's all future growth. And I think that's what Wall Street was looking at when the stock go up 15, 16%. It was a huge jump for a legacy automaker.
And then they followed it up the next day
Right.
with more news.
Yeah. So go into that.
The
What was
time
some-
is so. Yesterday we went to New York and they talked about eyes off technology in
Super Cruise Level 3,
Super Cruise Level 3.
hands off, eyes off.
A little confusing if they're going to call it Super Cruise or something else, but it hands off, eyes off, highway only to begin with, routed so that way, as you need to take back over, as you get closer to the intercept or to the exit, off the freeway, there's a lot of time to kind of get the driver back involved because you can be, you're 2 miles from your gate, you're from your exit, and kind of bring them back on. And you, because it's highway only, you are expected that you're going to have to get yourself off the highway. And so it's part of the trip, not all of the trip. But the technology seems to be pretty cool. And then they've put a time to it. And so this is what, 2028.
Oh,
2028 calendar.
Okay.
And then we're talking about the new supercomputer, the new computing power that's going to go in. So we had the
zonal centralized compute
zonal
platform.
centralized. So it's a little bit different from Rivian.
They call it a leapfrog over current zonal.
Yeah.
Where more of it's controlled central unit. But yeah, it's similar to zonal though.
Similar to zonal, and it sort of takes like those initial sensors and puts the thought process more centralized.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have stepping on the brake and having that sensor tell it to turn the brake light on. You have that sensor saying, oh, go back to your big computer and this is what you all need to do. But there's Ethernet instead of CAN bus. And so there's a lot faster. And the computing power, I was looking at the numbers too, they are definitely putting more of the computing power toward the autonomy, which is what, 10 times faster.
Right.
And then there's 2 to 4 times more power for infotainment. So,
well, and it's centralized, but it's also modular. So like you're not going to have it on the entry level, and you can add more, to something that is highly autonomous if you need it.
Yeah, there's growth there. Powertrain agnostic.
See, that's very interesting, because as you guys know, Ford pretty much gave up on its zonal centralized for its ICE products.
Yep.
Still going ahead with its Skunk Works, and they just decided that was too heavy a lift for the legacy side of the business to go along with it. GM doesn't seem to have that problem.
No,
Right.
and it might be if you look at the evolution of the vehicle intelligent platform from 2019, and then the evolution that they did about 2 years ago. So I think it might be partially just because of where GM is in the evolution of their electrical architecture to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
That
Right,
enables
and
them
the
to do
fact that
this.
they're trying to be more vertically integrated with all of
Yeah.
it. So their systems speak to each other. You could see what's happening over at Rivian and VW. VW trying to integrate some of Rivian's software into cobbled up ICE / EV products. They're having a lot of issues.
Mhm.
GM has been working with their own platform and their own components, and they're trying to, integrate it in from an ICE level and an EV level.
Well, but let's not leave our friends at NVIDIA from out of this conversation.
Oh, well,
since they're using the NVIDIA platform. It isn't like these guys in Warren are beginning to do their own silicon. So,
well, exactly. But from the core standpoint, though, they're using NVIDIA's products and integrating it into their own system rather than taking an off-the-shelf product like most automakers are trying to do.
So they're saying 10 times more over-the-air update capacity,
Yeah.
1,000 times more bandwidth, and up to 35 times more AI performance for autonomy and advanced features.
Mhm.
And then they talked a lot about how there'll be autonomy in your vehicle, which will be your friend and learn to be your companion.
Yes.
We've heard this from the Europeans also. Right?
Oh, and Hyundai.
Yeah, and Hyundai.
Oh, I was thinking about it when they were talking about it being your friend and having all the information. And John, you might remember, Toyota did a Sienna minivan that had all of this sort of friendly stuff. And one of the things I remember is it had a calendar. You walked up and the calendar would show up on the screen for you. Point being, that I think was 15 years ago. We've been talking about how it's going to be your friend and be predictable for a very long time. But in GM's news yesterday, next year they'll do Gemini AI, and they didn't put a date on it, but sometime after 2028, they'll do their own AI system and kind of bring that all in-house.
So this first one, they're working with Google on that one.
Yeah.
And,
they'll need the architecture that we were talking about goes in 2028. So they need to have that in first before they're going to be able to do their own AI.
So why are they putting it first in the next generation Escalade IQ?
Not.
Why
Yeah.
not?
top to bottom, right?
Yeah, top to bottom. Cadillac's supposed to be your leading technology brand. Your luxury brand is where people will spend more money to save time, and then you cascade it through. To me, it feels very logical to put it there.
Right. It's until they can get scale.
Yeah.
Start with something where you can have some margin, right, to pay for it.
Yeah.
But wouldn't they have greater volume if they just put it in the normal Escalade?
I mean, they're telling us that
But
the rollout's going to be quicker than Super Cruise. So,
for this,
when you
system.
put it in a legacy product, think about it. If you're going to have the zonal centralized thing, all the components that you're using right now have software in them written by the suppliers. That's all going away. So now you pretty much have to get rid of those components, right? Or you've got to change them so that they fit into this new zonal architecture. That's a big mess. If you've got a clean sheet electric product right now that you can just slap that in, it's much easier to start with that.
But isn't the next generation Escalade going to be completely clean sheet?
I doubt it.
The IQ.
The IQ.
Oh, IQ.
Yeah, so that's why this is the next generation of the IQ.
So if they do another vehicle, I mean, why wouldn't you do this in an expensive volume vehicle that you're going to be able to get scale faster than a limited selling EV, which, oh, by the way, Mirabera has now admitted that it's going to take longer for these EVs to be what she thought they would be. So by that point in time, there may be even fewer EV sales.
Oh, I don't think we're going to have fewer in 28. I think we're going to be in better shape in 28 than we are now.
I agree.
Not the trajectory that was talked about.
Not
a while
30%.
Ago, but it'll be better then. And I think part of the key is they've said several times that the rollout's going to go a lot faster. And 2017 when we first saw Super Cruise, that learning curve period was quite long. But once they really started rolling it out, and once they got over chip shortages in 21, then it started rolling quick, and they're ready to do that. So I think it's going to roll much faster than you imagine. And I think that's part of it. And the other part of it is you've got a new technology that people have to learn to understand. And so if you do it in the Escalade IQ, you do also kind of buy yourself a little bit of time when you continue that education process, and when you continue the making sure, they'll feel like it's right before you go out, but you feel like that little bit of a process is almost better with a slightly smaller group. And it might be a year before it starts rolling out. So we aren't talking about 3 or 4 years later.
So let's pivot to Tesla.
Technological optimists here. I'm thinking about that Jeep over-the-air update that bricked those vehicles. Just saying.
Right. There's a learning curve. But let's talk about Tesla, because it also reported its earnings just yesterday. And we saw sales were up. Sales were up strong. Revenue was up in all sectors of the company, energy storage, cars, services. And yet profits fell like 40%.
So they had revenue was up 12%, net income was down 37%.
And operating income down 40%.
Credit sales were down 44%.
Yeah, and I think this explains a lot of the reason why profits were down. They're just not getting that ZEV credit money.
Yeah.
To the tunes of hundreds of millions of dollars gone.
So last year they made $739 million, and this was 417.
Yeah, so significant drop.
Mm-hmm.
Build a ballroom for that kind of money.
So I posed the question to you guys: Are we seeing a crossing over point where here's General Motors has been the poster child of slow, plodding legacy company, and we've just been talking about all this exciting stuff, although a lot of it Tesla pioneered. Meanwhile, here's Tesla. It's been the poster child of this agile, lean, growing car company. Are we starting to see a crossover?
We might be. Part of it is Tesla sort of stopped evolving their cars, didn't they? Other than
there hasn't been anything
really
contenting them.
Yeah, exactly.
Full self-driving, they're still trying to figure out.
So where's the innovation? We haven't seen anything truly innovative from Tesla.
There, and there isn't really a lot on the agenda for what the next anything is going to look like. So other than Cybercab, which we'll wait and see a little bit how that really evolves. And what you're seeing at GM, I think, is coming to fruition, a lot of decisions that were made a long time ago and that have just been consistently improved.
And they didn't shift course.
And have stayed through. So I think that's a lot of what we're seeing at GM right now. And
they also have an ICE portfolio that's rather strong right now.
Yep, it's strong.
Is holding up their business that Tesla doesn't have. So
yep, I agree. So does it mean that GM is suddenly a more technology oriented company than they were before? I don't know. What I thought, did you think? I asked you about this, Paul, in the presentations that we saw yesterday. One of the things that I was thinking about it after is the two, the Aurora, Sterling Anderson from Aurora and Dave Richardson from Apple, like in their presentations and in their conversations about the new technology they were bringing, they were both very clear. These are cars. And it was interesting and very neat to see these two guys who have only been with the company for 6 or 8 months, really excited about their technology being applied to cars and not forgetting that that's what it was and understanding that. And I thought that was a really interesting and refreshing take. And we don't hear that as much when you're talking about a Tesla or a technology company. It tends to focus on the AI as the end result and the thing. And this AI is going to make your car better for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a major shift from what we've seen in Rivian or Tesla. And those companies have obviously great potential in the long run, but you get a bump in the road, like $7,500 tax credit goes away. All of a sudden you're losing the ZEV income that you're getting. And all of a sudden your business gets shook up. And we're seeing that with Tesla right now. When you don't have anything else to fall back on, you don't have many options.
I thought was very interesting is in the earnings deck presentation that Tesla made yesterday, that one of the slides was the Optimus robot at the Tron Ares debut, which is the biggest tanking movie of the year. That's where you want to show off your good technology, at the failure of a movie.
It went, and I did. So we were at the GM thing, and one of the things that in the Q&A that Sterling Anderson was asked about was that they were talking cobots. Collaborative robots was one of the conversations that GM was having yesterday. And there was a little video that showed them, and they were kind of like the dogs and kind of like rolling things, all plant-oriented stuff, right? And the question in the Q&A was, why are they not humanoids? Because Tesla and because there's some Chinese companies doing humanoids. Why aren't you doing humanoids? And Sterling Anderson's like, well, because people's hands are better, effectively. He's like, because people can be more nuanced, and actually building something that has the right grip and the right torque and the ability to hold something is really quite difficult. But moving this around and having this other part support what that person is doing is much more efficient and a better use of robotics. A couple hours later, we're in the Tesla. I'm listening to the Tesla earnings call, and the Q&A, and sort of later on when Elon Musk goes into his sort of random chattering, he starts talking about how hands are really hard to do, and that's slowing up Optimus. He's like, it's really hard, and as you find out, like, I'm paraphrasing that. He's like, fingers are different lengths for a reason, and it's really in the forearm where the strength is coming from. So it was interesting to hear two robotics people talking about the same issue in the same day. I'm sure it wasn't scripted, but it was funny.
But I'll add one other thing too that GM's not going to talk about is the UAW. And, you've got socialists especially coming out against automation. Bernie Sanders is calling for a tax on robots, because it's going to get rid of jobs. There's a lot of people in manufacturing on the labor side saying, wait a minute, this automation is going to get rid of all kinds of jobs. So if you start introducing humanoid robots in a UAW plant, they're going to go ape. Yeah. If you introduce cobots that work with workers to enhance their job, that's a totally different story.
And if you think about what robots we've seen out of BMW and Hyundai and their plants, they have been more that. It has been more cobots. It has been things that aren't so much humanoid. There's the dog that walks around and checks the seams and things, but most of it is like that. You're right. It's not humanoid that the more traditional automakers are talking about for plants. They're not talking about humanoids.
It's cobots. So just full disclosure here, like one of my very first jobs was working on a magazine called Robotics Today. So I've been
Right.
covering the robot industry longer than you guys probably have existed. And, you know, this whole cobots thing, okay, cobots have been basically around since 2016,
Yeah.
okay? And so for car companies now to be, oh, we're using cobots, it's like, Jesus, you know, do you put air in tires too? It's like, it astonishes me that this becomes something that's considered to be clever. And to the point of the robot tax, again, the robot tax has been talked about for like ages. But the thing of it is that if you look at it statistically, that basically the more robots you have greater economic growth
Yeah.
rather than
Less.
a reduction. And you know, if we're going to be competing in the world, in the US, we need to be more efficient. And this is a means by which we can be more efficient. And if you look at the per capita use of robots, like in, that's right, China far exceeds what it is in the United States. You think, well, gee, they got so many people there. Why do they even need robots? But because they find out that it's got an economic leverage to what they're doing. So more, not less.
And isn't there a tariff running around about robotics? I feel like that's in the air somewhere.
Yeah, that's another.
Don't remember if the Section 232 has been finished yet. That's one I don't remember, but I think that's on the agenda too, which is interesting because you want to tariff the robotics, because if you have robotics come in and they're doing the jobs that
right,
there's a big circle there.
Yeah.
But
Just to finish up the Tesla discussion, what do you guys make of Elon Musk saying, "Pay me this big pay package, or I'm out of here"?
Okay, so here's my question to you guys, which is in line with that. Like, okay, at this point in time, what if he goes away? I mean,
what if he goes away?
I mean,
The stock would tank, I think.
Why?
Number one.
Well, it depends on who they put in, and it depends on how they handle the change. But there should be somebody in there that can step up. At some point, a lot of companies, you look at their evolution, and the right CEO at one point is not the right CEO at a different point. That may happen with Tesla right around now. You know, he's running a lot of different projects and he's pushing things, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of maintenance and development in the autos side of the business.
It's all robots and AI.
It's all robots and AI. So whether Musk leaves the company or they just get somebody in to deal with the automotive side of the business, it does feel like that wouldn't be a bad thing.
But if he leaves and takes AI and robots with him, Tesla stock tanks, you know, the next day. It's, you know, there's just no way that you can support the valuation as a car company. If you throw AI and robots, okay, maybe it's worth.
okay, but okay, Steve Jobs dies. Did Apple die?
Right.
Tim Cook takes over. Company's valued more than people could even imagine.
Yeah.
So here's because I remember they had John Scully after they threw Jobs is running it, throw him out, put in John Scully. Lasts a very short period of time.
Because the company tanked.
Big company, because it's like, where's Steve Jobs? And Steve Jobs went and started Next Computer, right? And he was doing that and developed a whole operating system, the BEOS, and on and on. Well, let's bring him back. Brought him back, and it's just like, he's back.
Because the innovation started again with a Steve Jobs driving it.
So, but my point is that if somebody who clearly was so essential to a company is able to, unfortunately in his case, die and get replaced, that the replacement can actually make it a better company. So maybe Tesla can be a better company. I think
part of you just said it, John, like the innovation. I mean, where is the innovation in Tesla right now? Maybe they need new blood to create new innovation.
Or maybe they don't need new blood. They just need, maybe they
need
need
blood at the top.
New blood to take let the dogs off the leashes.
Right.
The dogs at Tesla. Let them run and do the stuff they want to do.
Yes.
Clearly there are very smart people within Tesla.
Absolutely.
And they do seem like they have leashes on them in certain aspects. So.
Look, I got to believe the design staff at Tesla is just dying to do new designs.
It's been whittled down to 2 people.
Right.
They're sitting in the corner office. You know?
And so the second part of that question about what happens if Musk goes is dependent on who comes. And it can even be in a little bit of a turmoil for a while. It doesn't have to be solved in the next 2 minutes.
There will be turmoil.
There
for
will
sure.
be turmoil for sure. The stock price will be affected for sure, but it isn't where the revenue is coming from. Your stock price can go down and you can still make money, I think, last time I checked. So it will hurt, and there will be a stock impact if he does go, but it doesn't necessarily have to end the company. And it might even be that the company does split. Maybe the automotive division goes one way and maybe
Well,
the
one
IA
thing I
goes
would
another.
say, this is all theoretical.
Oh, yeah.
Musk leaves, the stock tanks. You're going to see huge amounts of money coming in to want to buy that company. Automakers, private investments. I mean, right now it's priced out in the atmosphere, right? It's a $1 trillion valuation. Nobody could buy it. But if the stock took a massive hit and got down to regular automotive multiples, you would see a feeding frenzy wanting to buy Tesla.
Okay, but the charging network alone,
Right.
who would want
Right.
that?
See, but the thing of it is, it's just not a car company, though. I mean, it's so much more than just a car company, and so the stock comparison really isn't fair to car companies, because here's a company that
Right.
has AI and rocket ships and robots.
Well,
and-
SpaceX, that's a separate company,
Separate
but it's under the
But-
aura of Musk.
right.
But so I think that, if they're really concerned that he's going to say, if I don't get my money, I'm going to go home, they have somebody in that back room better have a plan, because there is talent within the company and somebody else could. But the most uncertainty, the most difficult thing is if he just walks out and they appear to be uncertain on how to put a new manager in. Someone's got to be thinking about that. Even if they aren't going to talk about it, that's
They're not going
fine.
to say it out loud.
They don't have to say it out loud, but you do. You have to have, and you should have succession planning for a CEO anyway,
That's right.
regardless of that.
And not just plan B, plan
Nope,
C as
plan
well.
C and plan D, and you really need to think about what that's happening, because the company is more than the person. It
It'll
really
be
is.
Kimball Musk.
Hey, look, we got to take a quick break. A shout out to the sponsors that make this show possible.
The automotive and industrial sectors are undergoing a historic transformation. Electrification, digitalization, supply chain reinvention, regulatory shifts. The pace is accelerating and the pressure to adapt is real. This is not a time for hesitation. It's a time for bold decisions, backed by fast, effective execution. You need a partner who understands complexity, from factory floors to boardrooms, and delivers measurable results. That partner is Alex Partners, when it really matters.
The automotive industry continues to evolve, and so do the opportunities to define it. BorgWarner, one of the world's most admired companies, gets its partners where they need to go. Let's do something big, together.
Thank you, Alex Partners and BorgWarner, for your support. Hey, I know there's a topic that you want to get into, but quickly, before we get into that, Carlos Tavares has written a book, just came out, I think it got posted yesterday online, where he's saying Stellantis may not stay together as a company and may have to get broken up. Paul, any thoughts on that?
I mean, there's a lot of different paths that they could go with that, but obviously the U.S. brands have been core to Stellantis. I think it could make sense in some aspects for some of the companies to split off.
Yeah, what Tavares was saying is that the political pressures, particularly in Europe between the French and the Italians, are such that he doesn't think they're going to be able to hold it together. You've got the Italian unions and the government really putting the pressure on Antonio Filosa, because production is down so much in Italy because the vehicles aren't selling. Same thing going on in France. The unions and the government want more jobs there, and the things just aren't selling. And meanwhile, you got Filosa putting $13 billion into his U.S. operations, and those people back in Europe screaming bloody murder about it. What do you think, Gary?
Well, the other interesting part about what Tavares said was he thought a Chinese company would buy the European operations, and then the U.S. operations would. Who would own them?
That's a good question. Maybe they're back to being independent again.
Would they? Or, I mean, look, I could see Ford and GM fighting to get Jeep, especially, maybe Ram.
That's just taking a competitor out. And is that better for you?
Well,
I mean, on the truck side,
it's going to give you a lot more volume, profits,
Possibly.
revenue. I mean,
that's assuming that it works that way.
that
You
right.
know, like you assume you buy a brand and you get all of their sales no.
Right.
People do stuff. I don't know that there's a feeding frenzy for that. I don't know that Ford really wants to expand. It makes more sense for Ford to buy Ram because Ford would just like to build more pickup trucks because that's all they want to build anyway. But
Ford's got Bronco, so maybe GM is the one that goes for Jeep.
I feel like if GM was really committed to going to an off-road Jeep vehicle, they could have done it. They've talked about it at GMC a number of times, and I feel like if that product was important to them, they've got the skill and capability to do it. They don't need to buy somebody else's. I mean, maybe because it's cheap, but it doesn't really fit. I don't know that is necessarily the best solution. Maybe it is better if they stand on their own a little bit.
So if they stand on their own, and you guys know product and the market very well, they stand on their own. Do they keep Chrysler and Dodge, or do they become a company that is basically Jeep and Ram? Because that's where the money's coming from.
I mean, you look at Chrysler, and when's the last time you saw a product, right? And the atrophy there is seemingly long lasting. Chrysler doesn't seem to make much sense anymore in their portfolio.
As it is, it doesn't. If they're really developing the products that we think, if they're developing the products that they're talking about, can they and can they revive it? It can be revived if you really want to. But as it stands right now, it's a minivan.
Yeah. But Dodge, I do think there's potential there. And I think that if they took the resources that they're saying they're putting towards Chrysler and they directed them towards Dodge, then I do see potential, especially if they add a couple SUVs that we've heard about. And I think there is potential there.
So what would Dodge be?
It would go back to having that mix. I mean, it's cars. It's still. I think that
would it be a muscle car?
Yeah,
performance?
muscle
sporty
brand.
performance brand can work.
But so that's what it would be. I mean, it wouldn't be, and so when you add, these two SUVs or whatever, they would be performance vehicles, not Hornets.
Or maybe you don't add them.
I mean, if there's no Chrysler in the picture, maybe they'd be able to sustain both. But I think a greater potential would be with focus on sporty aspect, which is where Dodge's thrive. So
see, this is interesting because we're talking about how Chrysler on its own in North America could probably make it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you look at what Filosa has got, in terms of Alfa Romeo, doesn't make any money at all.
Right.
Maserati, I mean, they've thrown everything in the kitchen sink at it. It hasn't worked. Lancia died 2 decades ago. Nobody told Stellantis that yet. You've got DS in France. It's going nowhere. And yet, if you tried to kill Maserati or Alfa Romeo, I mean, the Italian government would go ballistic.
So is the Italian government or the French government going to be like, oh, sure, sell it to the Chinese. That'd be good.
Yeah.
They're already, if this is the
problem. You know what? If they save jobs, they'll sell it and the government will be behind it.
It's possible. It's possible. But I think we go back at this and you look at all the brands and the idea, what did Mr. Tavares said? He said, we have scale. We can support our 14 brands because we're going to share and we have scale.
Sister brands, right?
And
that all goes away.
Yeah.
It hasn't been effective.
Well, but I mean, look how much has been unraveled so far, in just a short time that Tavares has been out, their electrification plans in the U.S. have been totally, they were turned backwards faster than Tavares was kicked out the door.
Yeah.
I mean, at V8 for everybody now.
Yep.
But they need to get their business back in line. So if that's what it takes for right now, just as long as they're still looking at the mid to long-term plans and planning for when electrification is hopefully going to take hold a little better in the later part of the decade,
as much as I think that Alpha has been a good brand and Fiat has been an interesting brand, it's okay.
Yeah.
They just don't have any legs in the States, really. I mean, and Alpha's just, there's too long between products. It's not that the brand ethos can't survive. It's not that they couldn't build a good product. They just haven't. It's nothing. It's not even that they've had a bad product and been able to not do it well, and they just aren't really playing in the States. But that product dearth has also been a problem in Europe too. So when you look at the European brands, again, you've got a company that, for all of the talk of scale, being able to bring products to market faster and being able to support and feed the brands by using stuff under the skin, all that theory sounded really good, but it didn't happen. And part of the reason these brands are struggling is because they don't have either enough product or not the right product.
So John, do you think it's possible for a Chinese company to buy the European business of Stellantis?
Yeah, I do, because it'll come down to jobs, and the unions, which politically are very powerful in both France and Italy, will say, the choice is we sell to the Chinese or we lose all these jobs. The choice is easy: sell to the Chinese. So
I'm not making a bet one way or another.
Yeah.
Okay.
And who knows? Maybe Stellantis will just, Filoso will get the thing turned around,
maybe
and
he will.
we'll laugh about what we said on this show.
Maybe you will. I mean, it's not dead yet.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
All right. So before the show started, and I mentioned to Stephanie, and she crushed me after I made this point. So I read this thing from Lexus, LEXIS, not the US vehicle one, Lexus/Nexus, that they did a study, and they discovered that when deciding on their next vehicle purchase, 42% of US consumers decided on the brand less than 1 month before purchasing or leasing. 42%, 1 month, and they could change to something else. And Stephanie, you're like,
well,
what are you, an idiot?
I'm trying to remember precisely. I'm sorry, Tom Libby, I don't remember precisely what our loyalty number is, but it's around 55, 52%. So what I was saying is, if 55% of the people are brand loyal and the rest aren't, well, of course there's a possibility they change in the last month. They could change in the last 2 hours.
So I mean, the thing that I wonder about is, so we're talking about Jeep, and we're talking about Ram, and we're talking about Chrysler, and we're talking about Dodge. And so my question to you guys is, like, to what extent do brands matter anymore in terms of people saying, you know what, I buy Ram. I don't buy an F-150. I don't buy a Silverado. I buy Ram.
It matters.
Versus like,
Yeah.
Well, especially with full-size pickups.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially.
All right, bad example.
There are some.
How many people say, I will buy a Pacifica minivan, and you got to pull my dead fingers off the steering wheel, and I will not buy an Odyssey, and I will not buy a Carnival, and I will not buy a Sienna?
Well, I think a couple things is that, I mean, there's no bad products on the market right now. Everything is good. So there's a lot of choice, and buyers, a large portion of buyers are price sensitive. So, they're going to find a vehicle type that they like, maybe, but they might be open to a number of different brands. And I think that just shows that the strength of the market as a whole right now is we have good product.
I think that's a great point, because, if you get online to search, boom, 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 boom,
Yeah.
you can line up all the different brands, one right next
Right.
to the other, and compare all the different features and what the price is. And so it's so much easier to choose between brands than it was
is.
before.
And I will go back to, even if that loyalty is 50%, even if it's only 42%, because some brands are that low, but even if it's that low, those brand buyers that are loyal, get to spend a lot less money to keep them. So from a marketing perspective, from how you communicate and how you reach out, it's less expensive to retain those buyers than it is to convert another buyer from the manufacturer's view. So the more that you can keep, the more that you can keep. But I don't think they necessarily nobody expects anymore that you get 70 or 80% loyalty. We haven't seen that in I don't even know how long. So the reality is, you're going to have a mixed consumer base. You're going to have a mix of loyal buyers, and you're going to have a mix of shoppers. The loyal buyers save you a little bit of money. So you want to have that. But it doesn't surprise me that people were, anecdotally, my sister went to go a few years ago. She was like, she was going to buy a Camaro. No, the F&I guy told her to go have lunch while he crunched some numbers. They went across the street and bought a Charger instead. I mean, people just make different choices on the whim. And some people are very loyal to their brands.
But to your point, John, you can cross shop a number of different vehicles by feature, but it's also easier to get pricing, an idea of what you would be paying. Right there online, we have so many resources, and dealers are more open to, handing some of those numbers, giving an idea at least of what you'd be paying.
No, that's a great point. You give the consumer more choices, they're going to take them.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure. Okay, so given you mentioned affordability, and we saw last week when it was announced that it's over $50,000 is the average transaction price for a vehicle. Does this have an effect on loyalty in and of itself?
In and of itself, probably not. And I think when we look at that average transaction price number too, we have to remember kind of who's buying right now. And there's a big electric vehicle pull ahead. Electric vehicles are more expensive. We've been talking about it. Affordability is high, but we've also been talking about it for the last 8 or 9 months. There's a lot of conversation about how tariffs are going to make things more expensive, and it's slowly starting to trickle in. So if you're on the fence, and if you're worried about that, there's probably some buyers that are just not stepping in right now. And the ones that are stepping in have a little bit more flexibility, which is just contributing to that higher price. Not that that's really crazy high price, and it has been coming up, but there are some other things happening too that we might see that settle down.
You see some correlation to like what happened back in COVID and the chip shortage. It was the more affluent buyers that were in the market at that time. And I definitely think we're seeing that.
Well, what I'm wondering about is that, okay, so let's take the mid-size SUV category, the ever popular category that everybody wants one, right? And so someone gets online and they look at their options, and if there is pricing attached to these things, is it likely that a dyed-in-the-wool Chevy person will consider a Kia?
They could.
I mean, do you think this is more likely now than it would have been 5 years ago when this information was not as readily available?
I might go 10 years, but yeah.
Yeah, probably 10 years. But I definitely think there's correlation with that.
And you look at who's gaining market share. Toyota's gaining market share. Hyundai's gaining market share. Hyundai Group. General Motors, too. GM has gained more market share than anybody this year in the U.S. market.
Yeah.
So, look, you give customers compelling reasons, and they'll abandon them. Not everybody. Some are horde car. I'm dyed in the wool on this brand, but
and some are dyed in the wool, and some are just that the brand actually works for them, and they're lazy about switching brands. Sometimes that's the case too, but sometimes sometimes Chevy buyers just like the design and they just like the styling, and some people are really attracted to the Kia styling. So some of that brand loyalty is about the product. But you do have buyers who are also super practical, and some of them are like, yeah, I can save whatever it is and it'll be closer and it's good enough. And to Paul's point earlier, there isn't a bad car. So, if you're a very practical buyer and you go Kia versus Chevrolet, you're probably not super unhappy with whichever at the end of the day, especially if price is the key factor for you. They're both going to have similar technologies. They're both attractive vehicles. They're both going to do what you need to do. Neither of them's going to just randomly break on you.
So Paul, you guys do a lot of research into features and technologies that consumers are interested in. I mean, are you seeing significant differences between what's on offer in terms of affordability for people that some car makers are putting so everybody has a laundry list of what they want, right? But no one is going to be able to afford what they want unless they're one of these affluent consumers that you talked about.
Yeah. And it used to be like, I would always say Nissan always packed the most value at the lower end of their portfolio. Now you see Hyundai Kia really stepping in, and they're making the value propositions, and it changes over cycles. But now GM is also starting to inject more, into most of their portfolio. So I think it's a cat and dog race here where they're all trying to keep up with each other. But non-negotiables now are the safety features that are kind of just baked into every vehicle. And I think it comes back to the point where there's not really a bad vehicle now. So a lot of it does just rely on price and value. So I think that's the direction that the market is going.
And I think value is that key factor as well as price, because I think there's enough vehicles at enough price points. It's the value that comes into it as well.
We're also starting to see less like trim options. I've noticed almost every automaker is cutting down their trim levels, and obviously that's helps in the factory too. But if you bake in more value, you make a stronger proposition on the market.
Yeah. And I think too, people coming in and out, and if you haven't bought a car for a few years, the price can surprise you. But when you start looking at that laundry list of what is pretty much standard anymore, I think consumers are smart enough to realize they're getting more technology than they used to. Like, they understand that some of that price increase is because they're getting more stuff. And they understand that there's stuff that they don't really want to go without. So while affordability is a problem in terms of how much of the market you're open up to, consumers, can understand some of where this price increase is coming from, except for the tariff side of it, which we haven't really dived into yet. I mean, automakers have been super cautious about increasing based on tariffs. That's probably shifting soon, but they have been. So I think consumers do, what they can afford is one question. And that's where, if it's more affordable, then you can get more people in. And that's where the market gets hung up. But I think people do understand and can make that price value connection.
And even more than features, I mean, you guys mentioned who's gaining market share, and look at who's offering hybrids, and that's becoming a big story to Hyundai, Kia, and the market share that they've been growing. Toyota is starting to offer, entire lineups as hybrid only. So automakers that are really digging deep into the hybrid hole are probably going to see some benefit in these next 5 years.
So do you guys see that being sort of a replacement for the emphasis that has been on electric vehicles for the last few years, that the electrification basically takes the form of a hybrid?
Yeah.
I think it's going to backfill a little bit, but you look at Toyota, they've been consistent on what they've been doing, and their messaging has been the same. EV has a time and a place, and it has a part in their portfolio, but they really think they can do more with hybrids, and they've stayed on that path.
They have stayed on
paying
that path.
off.
The other side of it is regulations. I mean, yes, I'm aware we're not charging anybody for not meeting right now. But I don't think there's an automaker who's going like, okay, this is gonna be sustainable. I'm never gonna have to pay a fine again.
We saw how quickly things changed just within this year.
Yeah.
Imagine, in the next 3.5 years or whatever.
And we do have more regulations coming. I mean, we don't know exactly what they're going to look like yet. They're not going to be as bad as they are, but we kind of knew they weren't going to be able to make.
This is what they'll look like.
No, it's not. I don't think we're going to be there. I think there's going to be something in the interim, and the regulations aren't gone yet. They have not been pulled away, which means you're still at risk.
But
so
nobody is pursuing them.
They are. Why do you think we're getting so many hybrids? It is not just because suddenly consumers woke up and said, I want a hybrid. It's about electrification. It's about regulations. That is part of the reason for hybrid here.
They're planning for flexibility.
And they're needing electrification. Even if it's not as bad as is not as aggressive as what's on the books right now, and even if it comes back, you still need more electrification, and hybridization is part of it. What we're finding is consumers will get to full electric at their own pace.
Right.
That's what we're finding.
Absolutely right. The automakers I've talked to are saying, look, we're being whipsawed by every new administration that comes in here. Right now, we're saddled with stranded EV investments. But what if the Democrats pull off the perfect trifecta in 2028 and they get the White House, the Senate, and the House? It's going to snap right back. And we could be caught by the end of this decade with stranded ICE investments. So to your point, Steph, they're trying to remain as flexible as they possibly can.
Absolutely. gas politics, but I have a hard time. I would hope that if the Democrats do that, we don't have as much of a whipsaw. I would hope that whatever the next administration comes in, whether it's Democratic or Republican, starts to understand that the whipsaw effect on the industry is causing a lot of pain.
Yeah, I know,
all the
but
way
look,
through.
why the Democrats were so adamant about putting in such strict regulations and forcing the industry to invest so heavily and move so fast is climate change, in their viewpoint, is
It is what it
is
is.
an existential threat. We have to move now.
It
And
is.
so I just don't see them
But we've
coming in
got-
and saying, you know what, Trump was right. We just
No.
can't push that hard.
I don't think they say. I think they find another way to say it. But because the thing is, again, consumers are pushing and deciding when they're going to do it, and I maintain that part of the reason. I mean, President Trump ran on, I'm going to get rid of some of this climate stuff. I don't like EVs. I don't think this is a good thing. Oh, I pretend I like them, but whatever it was, the regulations
When
are going to be
Elon
gone.
was there, he liked them, and then
Right, and then he didn't, and whatever. But you knew that was coming. So if you voted for Trump, you knew that was part of his agenda, and people are buying at they want. So I think there's two really strong signals that consumers have said we will buy EVs when we're ready. We're seeing it in Europe. We're seeing that and we're seeing it in Canada. We're not seeing that consumers don't want EVs, but we're seeing that is going to be the factor more than regulations, I think.
Right.
Even if the Democrats come in and want tougher regulations, they're not going to be able to go as hard as they were because consumers are not going to follow them.
Yeah.
Regardless of your political party, you're going to buy what makes sense for your lifestyle.
And there's still that infrastructure thing,
Yeah.
So even if they're pushing so hard, it's not attainable right now for
Not
most
for the
of
mass
America.
market.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, look, anybody I know who talks, who owns an EV says, what infrastructure problem? What
Well,
charging problem? I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
And, so the people who have bought
you live in a
EVs
house.
well,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
they all do live in houses, the
Yeah.
ones I know. This
So
is true.
there's still 35% of America that doesn't have access to a home charger.
I know, but
so
that means 65% do.
oh, yeah.
So the market could be right with the right product at the right price.
And I don't think it's the one right product at the right place.
Right.
We need to fill out the whole thing. And so Bolt coming on, Leaf coming on, and we are getting vehicles at different price points. So that.
Well, hey,
That's
what
part
do you
of it.
guys make? Because we've been talking about the Bolt and everything, and now GM in the last week has been talking about, there's going to be a whole family of low-cost EVs.
They've said that before.
Yeah, but
This
they
isn't
seem to be hitting on that more now.
They're going to bring out the
I think
Bolt
it's timely.
EUV again, so they'll.
A little bit of that is timing because the Honda project was supposed to be multiple, and even before the Honda project was there, filling out a more affordable side of things is part of the market evolution, especially for a company like GM that does sell at every price point. They're going to need more than one $30,000 EV because they've got 3 brands that could sell it at that point, right? They've got more brands and they're covering a bigger part of the market. So it makes perfect sense to me. Ford picks a much more focused product lineup, so they might not have as many things coming.
Interesting.
Hmm.
We're down to the end here. You got something burning there?
Nah.
I think we've covered a lot of the major stuff. So we didn't get to the chip shortage, which maybe that's next week's show because maybe things will start shutting down by then.
It's coming quick.
You're not going to be here next week, John.
I'm not going to be here, but I leave it to you guys to.
It's either going to happen or it's not, right? It's one of those. It's so politically oriented, and it could be solved or not.
Yeah.
Just wait and see.
Just like the government shutdown. Could
Yeah,
it be solved
It
or
could be
not?
solved or no.
I don't think it'll be solved.
don't
I don't think it'll be a total shutdown. I think it's just another thing the industry is going to have to stumble across for the next few months.
Which will cause the rise in prices of vehicles even higher.
That's true. Yes, it will.
Mhm.
Anyway, on that happy
Ain't it
note,
swell?
yeah, right. Paul Waatti, thanks so much for coming back in here. Stephanie Brinley, great to have you here. Gary, good to see you every week, and want to thank all of you for having tuned in.
AutoLine After Hours is brought to you by Alex Partners, when it really matters, and by Borg Warner. The automotive industry continues to evolve, and so do the opportunities to define it. Borg Warner, one of the world's most admired companies, gets partners where they need to go. Let's do something big together.